Okay, I think everyone's can everyone hear me? Okay, wonderful. Sorry for the delay. My camera really wasn't working this morning for some reason, so oh well, technology. But in any case, welcome everyone. This is Chenrezig Practice. Lama Rod. So good to see you all here this afternoon or morning or wherever you may be, time zone. I forgot that there was a time change this morning, so now all the clocks in my house are off. I wouldn't know what to do if it wasn't for, a smartphone, because I just like can't manage my life anymore without technology doing it for me. So I think that's setting us up for some type of like technology, robot, AI revolution, which will lead us into the storyline of the Matrix, but we're not going to talk about the Matrix today. But again, welcome everyone. So we're going to get right into practice, and because I want to actually have some space for questions, we haven't really actually had much space for questions around the practice. So I'm going to set aside a good chunk of time for that as well. And for those of you who are new, just reminding you too that we do have recordings and so forth online on YouTube, so you can always go back and practice from the very beginning of kind of when we started the summer. Okay, so so we're talking about love, right? And as always, at least for me, I'm always trying to practice much more deeply with the experience of love. So I do believe that love, not to just be completely cliche, but I do think that love is the answer. Of course, it's like so hard to say that because it is very much a cliche. I think that we kind of throw this word around, and I think to some extent it's lost a lot of potency, I think, because I think that we really, when we talk about love, we kind of go into our experiences of conditional love, which is, quite violent for many of us. And I think that's how love is weaponized for us, is through conditional love. Again, we can't get the care that we need unless we become a certain way, right? And I think many of us really have survived and can actually continue, right, to survive these experiences of conditional love. And I think part of it is about survival too. I think that like sometimes we have to make choices to kind of fit ourselves into some way of being, which is not authentic to us, but in order to get the resources that we need, and that's, part of survival for many of us, right? But we have to, at some point, start creating the space, carving out the space where we can actually start connecting to the actual experience of unconditional love, as well. So when I go back and talk about these cliches, oh, love is the answer, for me, I've gotten back to really understanding that and embodying that a little bit more authentically, that love is actually, I can say that love is actually the answer, is actually the way forward, right? But there's a complexity in that as well, because love doesn't actually mean that things are easy or it feels good. Like love isn't like a cakewalk, or a parade or cupcakes or, puppies and kittens and rainbows and chocolate sprinkles, all the stuff that we love, it's like when we think about love, but, love is actually labor, it's work. It's hard work, actually. Because at the heart of loving is holding space, like this unconditional holding space when we actually do this work of allowing everything to be there, right? To not react, but to allow phenomenal reality to arise as it is. That's like the real work of love, which is, acceptance. But again, acceptance and holding space. This isn't about this isn't about being comfortable. This isn't about condoning what we're holding space for, but this is just allowing things to arise. It's telling the truth about what's happening, right? You can't change anything until you tell the truth, or at least until you get to the truth, right? So love is about actually allowing things to be as they are, and then we begin to see clearly what's happening, and then we can respond and say, okay, well, let's change this. Let's do something different. Let's make a different choice. But you can't really commit to real change until that foundational love is present, allowing everything to be as it is, right? And then love can progress from there, right? From the holding space, right, to, really investing in this wish that as things arise, may everything have what it needs. May everyone have what it needs to be well and safe and happy and free. But you're already beginning to do that when you're holding space and allowing, right? Because everything is getting clear when we're allowing things to just arise. Like the clarity or the wisdom gets, really, really strong. And out of wisdom, then we can actually start working to ensure that ourselves and all beings have what they need to be well and free and safe. Right? So much of what's happening in the world in terms of, in this country, legislation and, legislation against, really attacking, our rights around gender expression, and so forth, and reproductive rights, and many things right now, really come from a place of conditional love and control. These people may say it's about love, but it's actually about power and control and dominance, right? It's the way in which the ego is trying to colonize the world in order to sustain itself, because a sense of self needs to see itself reflected in the world to be sustainable, or another way of saying is that, like, I need the world to look like me in order to feel safe. Or to act like me, or to believe in the same things I believe in. Because I want to feel safe, but this isn't about the safety that I'm talking about and promoting. Is the kind of safety where we're free from harm and violence, but not the kind of safety where we're it's the kind of safety where we can be uncomfortable but not in danger, which is a very big difference, right? If I am uncomfortable, it doesn't mean that I am unsafe necessarily, right? But of course, we're conflating discomfort with not being safe, and that creates a kind of reactivity, that ends up with laws and legislation that actually begins to limit people's freedom instead of expanding those freedoms. If that makes sense. That's what conditional love leads to, is domination, and harm and violence for everyone, especially the person or the being and so forth who's expressing conditional love, right? So again, unconditional love is the way, right? It's really what we're trying to return back to. It's this way of being in the world where we're just fluid and open, and we're experiencing discomfort, and we're discerning if that discomfort means that I'm in danger, right? And then danger meaning that like my access to resources are being disrupted, you know? Like I can feel uncomfortable, but it doesn't mean that like I stop getting the resources that I need to be well, you know? But unconditional love helps us to connect to the space that holds all of this so we don't find ourselves in this habitual reactivity to everything, you know? But we find ourselves transitioning and expanding into the space which holds everything and which is the nature of everything, you know? And from that space, we respond to what needs to be responded to, right? And this is as much for the world and communities and in our relationships as it is for us, right? For us, how are we practicing conditional love for ourselves, right? Because that's where this really begins, is with the treatment of self, of our bodies, of our minds, of our experience. What is our relationship to ourselves? Because that will actually inform our relationship with the world around us and the communities and in our relationships, right? So when people, for instance, you know, I'm very disappointed to admit that a very controversial, infamous Georgia State Congresswoman represents my hometown. I don't have to name who this person is. And when I think about her, like I think, wow, like you're doing all of this shit, but I wonder what this experience is like for you. Like you're creating all of this chaos for other people, but there has to be chaos happening for you in your mind and in your body that this is actually coming from, right? Because authentic love and care for the self doesn't yield chaos for everyone else. You know, it doesn't yield controversy. It doesn't yield violence. You know, it yields space. It yields fluidity. It yields gentleness, tenderness, you know. So when people are really creating these conditions, causes and conditions of violence, that's actually happening first and foremost for themselves. That is also a situation that they grew up in as well, you know. So compassion comes in, right? Compassion meaning that like I'm sensitive to the suffering. I want the suffering to end for myself and for others. Compassion arises for folks, right? Compassion for me, compassion and love are really kind of intertwined. And you'll see that more when New Saints comes out in October, like the kind of work I've done to reimagine, you know, the integration of compassion and love. But all this is together for me. So when I think about the ways in which people are surviving the lack of care for themselves, I can actually experience much more compassion. But that doesn't mean that like I like people. You know, I don't like this person, right, who represents the place I grew up, the county I grew up, right? I don't like this person, but I want them to be well and happy. And I want this to be a goal for all of you, you know, as we deepen our practice. I know some of you have been practicing Chenrezig for a while now, but I want this to be a goal for you and for all of us, is to separate liking and loving, right? And to name the people that, people, beings, beings that we don't like. I don't like you. It doesn't mean I want you to go to hell and all that stuff that we say, right? But it means that, like, I am not going to be in a relationship with you because I actually maybe don't feel safe, right? Actual safety. Like, if I'm in a relationship with you, then there's a chance that I get the resources I need to be well and free and happy. But that doesn't mean that I don't want you to have the resources you need to be free and well and happy. Because if you had those resources for yourself, maybe you would be making different choices that don't actually end up turning into violence and harm and the restrictions of freedom for so many of us who are just trying to survive, And many of us who have come from communities where so much of our energy is diverted into surviving, not thriving, but just surviving, just making sure that we have access to things and fighting for those access to things and working really hard to get access to those things. Like, and it's hard to get into that space. Absolutely, it's very difficult, but it's so sustainable, right? It's so much more sustainable, right? Because, at least for me, like, I had to let go of the shame that I had around not liking people. I also had to let go of my issues around people not liking me, but that's a whole nother thing. I think that's gonna have to be a whole nother talk in the future. But I'm just saying that, like, I had to, like, really let go of how liking people was so culturally and socially tied to these ideas of what it meant to be a good person. Again, all this is in the book, so everything I'm saying it's really in New Saints. But yeah, and I had to let go of that and actually understand what being good or practicing goodness really meant, right? And it didn't mean liking people or struggling to like people, but what it meant is that I had to love everyone, right? And that may sound really hard, but I think it's a lot easier. So, because there are people you will never like, I promise you. You can pray about it, you can give it to Chenrezig, you can give it to Tara, you can fast it, you can pray about it, you can, like, do empowerments about it, like, you can do whatever you want, like, but there are people you just will never like, right? And you have to let go of that. Right, you can still practice goodness and not like a lot of people, right? But what we have to do is love everyone, but you have to want everyone to have the resources that they need to be well and to be free and safe and everything. We have to really engage in that, And you can feel the dislike for people, and feeling that dislike, and then the other experience of saying, you know what, you can go to hell, but I still want you to have the resources you need to be well, right? So sometimes you have to kind of start there. It's like you can go all the way to hell and stay there, but may you be well. And so after a while, of course, that will change, right? Absolutely. Like, you can get to a place to say, you know what, we won't ever have a relationship, I won't ever be friends with you, but I wish that you got what you needed, or I wish you could get everything that you need to be well right now. Like, I really want that for you. It can be still a mixed experience, right? You can feel the aversion to wishing that, and you can also feel the authentic opening to wanting someone to be well. I can't tell you how many times I've cussed people out, and then the second breath being, okay, but I hope you're okay. You know? And maybe that's as far as we get in the practice in this life, and that's great, right? I think that's fine. I think that's a significant shift to be able to like to come back and say, yes, there's a part of me that wishes you harm, but here's another part of me that actually wants you to be free from harm and to be safe, right? That's fine. You know, that probably maybe it's all that many of us can do in this life, but that's extremely significant, right? Compared to like not, you know, being able to wish someone well whom we don't like. So there's lots here. And so in the practice, you know, what we just want to do, because in deity practice, right, in energy practice, as we find in Tantra, we're working very deeply, really, within the energy body, right? And working very deeply within, you know, the mind itself, right? So we're shifting energy, we're clearing energy, we're expanding energies and getting energies to flow, you know, much better. And that will begin to have an impact in how we can feel supported and safe enough to expand into authentic, unconditional loving for both ourselves and for others around us. When I'm talking about the self, I really do hope that you like yourself as well as love yourself. You know, I think we do have to really like ourselves, like because we're kind of here. Like this is like not. It's like we're kind of like, you know. I hope you like it. It's like, you know, when we buy like a house or a car or something that we're going to be using a lot. I hope you kind of like that. You know, some people are like, well, this is what I could afford, you know, so I had to settle. But we have to go beyond that for ourselves, right? We have to just really come back. I think love is how we connect to the experience of really liking ourselves, right? And I know there's lots of stuff out there around self-love and care. You know, I think about my friend Sana Renee Taylor. You know, the body is not an apology. She has done incredible work. I knew Sonia well before this platform began for her. She's done incredible work with like body positivity and everything. And I think that's really important, you know, and we all have to offer whatever work we have to offer people, you know, and this is the work that I offer, you know, allying with Chenrezig. Okay, so let's begin. Let's get into this practice. And we're going to just keep working through just this really basic practice that I've introduced around, you know, kind of calling our benefactors into the space, absorbing that energy, moving that energy up the body into the heart chakra, and allowing that energy to awaken the heart chakra. Like that's the kind of deep energetic work, right? That will actually create a very strong foundation for the blossoming of really, really healing unconditional love for ourselves and for others. Right? And in the practice, just allowing ourselves to be held, to experience space, expansion, openness. And that's the place where authentic love is practiced, right? We practice unconditional love from the experience of space, spaciousness. We practice conditional loving from the experience of constriction, shutting down, and rigidity, which becomes reactive. So when we shut down, we're reacting to the discomfort of being shut down and rigid. When we're experiencing spaciousness, we are responding to the freedom of space. So we're trying to cultivate space, okay? And we'll go with the mantra as well. So just allowing ourselves to arrive in our practice space and just beginning to offer, an intention for practice, and that maybe our collective intention is to deepen or to awaken and deepen the experience of unconditional love for ourselves and for all beings. And relying on the profound lineage and practice of Chenrezig to experience this. So when we just turn our minds to Chenrezig like that, through this intention, then the consciousness of Chenrezig begins to awaken for us in our experience. And then that awakening of Chenrezig's consciousness is really the awakening of our consciousness into space and fluidity and freedom. Always remembering that our mind is also the mind of the deity. When you're ready, shifting your attention down to the seat, again, noticing the weight of your body and the seat rising to hold you. And to imagine that the seat, as it's rising to hold you and to care for you, is also expressing love, unconditional love. The seat is just trying to take care of you. And in that care, we also connect again to the mind and consciousness of Chenrezig. And what else in the space around you is attempting to take care of you? For instance, what's the temperature of the space that you're in? Is it comfortable? Is it where you want it to be? Right? Is it at least warmer than it is outside, or cooler than it is outside, depending on what climate you're in? But is the temperature of the space, is it taking care of you? Right? What about the quality of light? Do you have enough light, and is the light taking care of you? Does your space smell pleasant? Right? Are the scents and smells in the space taking care of you? Are your clothes taking care of you? Are your clothes comfortable? Just really connecting to these experiences of care that you're receiving, and to measure that care, to sense that initial care through the experiences of pleasure or comfort that we're having or experiencing. You begin to notice over time that the phenomenal world is caring for us. The natural world is caring for us. You know, there's oxygen to breathe, so the natural world, the plants, right, are taking care of us. There's foundation and stability under us, so the earth, the land is taking care of us. We have some level of safety, right? And that, you know, is a collaboration of many different beings and phenomena to experience safety or freedom from harm. So again, just connecting to this, because this is Chenrezig, this is the deity, always awakened, always attempting to free us. This is the gaze, the watchful eye and holding of Chenrezig. Always watching, always caring. And when you're ready, I invite you to just imagine your benefactors appearing in the space around you, all your teachers and guides and mentors and, you know, deities that you feel connected to, and ancestors that you feel close to, and so forth. All the beings who love us, who want us to be free and safe and well, we imagine that they begin to appear in the space around us. We can now begin to imagine that our benefactors begin to radiate the energy of care into the space around us. And this care, you know, can be an expression of love, compassion, whatever feels appropriate for you. And maybe even to spark this kind of sharing from your benefactors, maybe just reflect on the last time you felt just really authentically loved and cared for. Whatever that experience was, imagine that that is the energy. that's being radiated towards you from your benefactor. And slowly we begin to imagine that we are beginning to absorb this energy of care into our bodies, into our minds. Slowly we begin to imagine that this energy of care begins to gather and collect around our navel area, which is our third chakra, our solar plexus. So this energy center associated with heat and change and movement, our metabolism, the fire that transforms material into energy and so forth. This energy begins to collect in the solar plexus, in the navel area, the belly button. And we can slowly imagine breathing in and out. Also the navel area. We begin to inhale or breathe into this energy of care gathered in the navel chakra or in the navel area. And as we breathe into that energy, we can feel that energy growing, getting a little more intense. But slowly we begin to imagine that in that energy, in the solar plexus, there's a flame that begins to appear, begins to awaken. And each time we breathe into the solar plexus, we breathe into that flame, and that flame gets a little bit stronger with each inhale. And to go just a little further, and this is optional as well, but as we breathe into or inhale into this flame, at the end of the inhale, just holding our breath for a couple of seconds. And in those few seconds, just feeling the energy get a little more intense in the solar plexus. And when you're ready, just exhaling out. So breathing in, holding, feeling that intensity increase, and then exhaling. And of course, you're more than welcome, again, to not do this or to actually hold the breath longer in your personal practice. But the more we hold that breath, the more we stop the breath there, the more we kind of hold the energy, right, in that chakra. And all that energy with the breath, the prana, right, with the energy of care that we've been absorbing actually begins to awaken the energy of the solar plexus, which again is the energy of change, transformation, as well as transmutation. It's the alchemical part of our bodies, the site of change and transformation. So once you've gone through the breaths, we're going to inhale again into the solar plexus with all of that awakened energy. And as we exhale now, we're beginning to imagine exhaling up into the heart chakra. So as we exhale up into the heart chakra from the solar plexus, we're exhaling and carrying this energy, this awakened energy of change in the form of warmth and fire up into the heart chakra, where it begins to collect and also awaken the heart chakra now. So again, inhaling into the solar plexus and then exhaling up the body, carrying this warmth, this energy into the heart chakra. And imagining that the heart chakra is not only filling up with this energy of care and change from the solar plexus, but it's also beginning to awaken even more as well. The heart chakra being the center of empathy and care and love and compassion, everything that derives from empathy. So feeling the expansion, the opening of the heart chakra here. And you can even add a little bit of a physical movement here. And sometimes, you know, you're able, just like lifting the shoulders and letting the shoulders roll down the back, and that will begin to open the physical upper chest, the heart chakra here. So you can feel really what feels like exposure, and space as you kind of expose the chest like this. But this is going to actually offer us more physical space that will complement the energetic space that we're opening with the breath and the visualization. And at this point, when we're actually working with the heart chakra, there are several kinds of things that we can imagine or not, in the heart chakra. But for me, I'm just beginning to imagine that my heart chakra is just kind of like awakening. There's a flame that begins to awaken within the heart chakra. And it's just kind of a gentle, warm, awakened flame in the heart center. And other times I can imagine that my heart chakra is being ringed by rings of fire, which is where the name of this practice comes from. And those rings of fire are actually awakening the heart chakra. It's melting, the karmic experiences of pain and suffering and trauma that actually keep our heart chakras really closed and rigid. So the idea here is there's a melting, there is a dissolving of the barriers and experiences in the heart chakra that keep us from experiencing the full awakened expansion of the heart chakra. And slowly, that space, that warmth begins to actually radiate through the body. And this energy that's actually beginning to radiate through the body from the heart chakra, this energy, this warmth, this fire, we can imagine that it begins to slowly dissolve our physical bodies. And in its place, we begin to imagine that we're arising in the form of Chenrezig. And the only thing actually that you have to do is simply say, I am Chenrezig in this moment. And this is the point of any deity practice where we become the deity, is to simply say, I am. And then it becomes optional beyond that to actually imagine our bodies as the deity. Right? You can imagine yourself arising as 1,000 Chenrezig, right? In silks and robes and jewelry with 1,000 arms and 1,000 palms with an eye looking out of each palm, and with rows of heads extending up above you. That I am Chenrezig, and imagining that you're radiating the energy of love and care into the universe, into the world around us, as well as the entire universe. And to trust this, that in this moment you are Chenrezig, that you are the Bodhisattva of transformative, liberatory love for all phenomena and all beings. To connect to the gentleness, the fluidity, the space that this form offers you. And to connect to whatever experiences that are arising for us, whatever emotional experiences in particular that arise for us, just to see those experiences as the expression of our awakened mind as Chenrezig. We're gonna transition just into just a few minutes of mantra practice and allowing the mantra again, Om Mani Padme Hum, to be this expression of wholeness, of unification, right? Of letting go of the separation between this sense of I and Chenrezig, that we become Chenrezig, we become the deity. There's no separation anymore. And you can just sit and listen to the mantra or chant along, but just continue to imagine yourself as Chenrezig, radiating love into the whole universe. Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 Om Mani Padme Just radiating just one last wave of deep care and love out into the world, out into the lives of people who are connected to us, our beloveds, our communities, into relationships that we're struggling with right now. Just imagining lighting and illuminating the whole universe, this whole world and all the worlds with this profound energy of care and love. And slowly, we again begin to imagine that we begin to dissolve again, our forms as Chenrezig dissolving into white light. How that white light dissolves into the nature of emptiness itself, leaving our awareness to mingle with space and emptiness. without boundaries or limitations. When you're ready, re-arousing again, coming back into your form, your body. Noticing the weight of your body making contact with the seat under you, feeling the care of the seat actually under you. Maybe beginning to reawaken your body through some simple movements and some stretching. Maybe even taking a few deep cleansing breaths to re-oxygenate the body. And just coming back into the space, still carrying really the blessing of Chenrezig and this expression of openness and space, whatever experiences of those that you may be experiencing. I want to just open up the space for any questions now that you may have about the practice or about anything really.
And folks should be able to unmute themselves. So you're welcome to raise your hand to signal to each other. Otherwise, just go ahead and unmute yourself if there's anything you'd like to ask or share.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
I have a question. I'm a beginner, and this is my first time with this practice, and I had physical pain when I was inhaling into my navel, more like emotional pain when I was inhaling into my navel, and then I went through the practice anyway. But I just don't know whether that's normal, whether it's grief, how to manage it.
Yeah. I mean, it can be many things. Absolutely. It sounds like you're identifying it as mental, like a kind of mental energy. Yeah, so it may be grief, it may be many other things. I think that, one of the things that happens is that this practice has to start healing and tending to our experiences around unconditional love, right? Of course, unconditional love is contraction, rigidity. So we're getting very deep into these like hidden layers, these hidden energetic experiences that are kind of really deeply buried, right? We use the solar plexus, which is also about agency. So you're digging into this kind of belief or disbelief, depending on how we're working with this, but like we're confronting our agency to change when we go through the solar plexus like this, right? So a lot of stuff will actually kind of come into focus, right? And then you just allow it to be held by the energy in the practice. Like we don't have to react to it, but you are experiencing it, absolutely. But again, because we're so connected and tuning into Chenrezig, this becomes an opportunity for us to actually offer this to the experience of the deity and the practice and see how it changes. And because we're also working with this kind of energy, you're going to feel physical pain. Not for everyone, not all the time, but that's a natural part of it because our physical bodies are responding to the workout of our energetic bodies, right? So as the energetic body expands, the physical body is actually having to respond as well. Thank you.
I'm wondering, is there room for both unconditional love and tough love
Oh yeah,
at the same time with someone?
absolutely, yeah, and that's why I didn't point this out either, too, but like really actually reminding us that love isn't necessarily gentle, because tough love. You talk about tough love is really kind of integrating compassion into that love. It says that, like, I want you to be free from suffering, and these are the choices that I have to make, I think, to free you from suffering. Sometimes tough love means that we set boundaries, and boundaries come from a deep sense of care for ourselves and for others. A boundary should always be an expression of love, right? A boundary, we shouldn't erect boundaries to hurt people. We should set up a boundary because we want people to be safe and well and happy. Like, we need the space to be safe and well and happy. We want other people to have the space. And this boundary is going to help us to have that space. Or the alternative is, of course, we do something that's not skillful, right?
I'm thinking also of tough love, and I understand the part about boundaries, but I'm also thinking just really being honest with someone about what you see in them that is causing their suffering, and in this case, causing suffering for their child as well, and just saying, this is what I see, and you're great with words, but you're not doing the actions.
Yeah, that's fine.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's just love. I think sometimes we have to take out like the adjectives around like what love is and say, well, this is just love. I want you to be safe and free and happy and everything. And this is what I'm doing to do that, right?
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. But as as we do, I always believe this, as we do this work with people, really just like holding their suffering too, their discomfort in our practice as well, because I think that helps it's a kind of groundedness, a stability when we're really tuned into other people's discomfort as we're having to do this kind of interaction with folks. Yeah, I know you're suffering, I'm suffering, you're suffering, and this is a choice that I'm making to reduce suffering for you, or how you're creating suffering for others. And of course, you have to also be willing to hold the space for the reaction to that, right? Wrath is a really important practice in Tantric Buddhism, and wrath is just compassion. And wrath is just like seeing something that needs to happen very clearly and just doing it. And wrath isn't really about us looking good or preserving anything. It's about actually reducing suffering, and whatever happens, happens. Right? I know sometimes we may have these really difficult talks with someone, and that may be the end of the relationship. And we have to hold that. I've had difficult interactions with good friends, and that's ended our relationship. And I hope that maybe in the future we'll come back around, to reconciling. But it's been you know, many years for some of these interactions, but I still believe that what I did had to happen. So I've had to really live through this personally, and it sucks, you know, to see someone that's out of control and you have to point that out, even though it risks the relationship. And you become actually you blame you get blamed, you know. As you know, one of my favorite feminist scholars, Sarah Ahmed, I think it's Sarah Ahmed, says, you know, once you point out the problem, then you become the problem, you know. And I have found a lot of wisdom in that. You know, once you uncover suffering, then everyone's going to blame you for uncovering the suffering and not just leaving it alone. So yeah, that's part of the work that we're holding. I saw someone else's hand. Did I see Lorena?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, uh-huh.
Hi, Lama Rod.
Yeah.
I'm not on screen because I'm still in my jammies. Sorry.
I would still be in mine too, but
Yeah. I wanted to, let's see, share that these practices are somewhat challenging for me. And yet I do them because I trust and love you. And I'm wondering, like, I don't know, do I need to develop more of a relationship with Chenrezig? But then I dropped that and I was like, no, just be present with what's here and feel into whatever I can feel. But yeah, like, and I managed to generate a feeling or visualization of warmth in my solar plexus, like a fire energy, and then like rings moving up to my heart and all of that. But I think part of what's hard is I've been so steeped in my suffering that it's hard to conjure up the warmth, to remember when was the last time I felt really held and loved. There's been so much guardedness that it's hard to really conjure that up. And yeah, I'm just wondering what your thoughts are, what you would suggest. I know we all have Chenrezig in us. I believe that, love and compassion. So how to rouse that when we feel, in my case, so alone. And like I just want to rouse myself. I kind of want to shake myself out and be like, like I woke up with that energy today. Get the fuck up and go out and lay on the ground, go into the woods, whatever it is, because I'm tired of being tired. Thank you.
Yeah, and this is why in practices like this, it can become a workshop and really a safe space for us to surrender a little more than maybe we can in our daily lives, So a lot of the work here is trust, right? And from trust, awakening faith, like in the deity. Because, this is Chenrezig, no matter how we practice it, Chenrezig is a really hard practice, because we're actually beginning to unroot these long, like intense narratives around how we don't deserve love or we're unlovable and we begin to kind of dig into the hurt from, from conditional loving in the past, and trying to figure out what the difference between conditional and unconditional love is, and trying to choose unconditional love and trying to rest in that as much as we can. And that, of course, is the nature of the deity that we're practicing here, right? So this just takes time, and for some of us, the hurt is really deep, right? But this is I say this is really hard practice, but in a way it's also really gentle as well. It's like very much like a gentle kind of warming up, and that has its purpose, absolutely, but is quite, intense as well, so yeah, like it just takes time. Like this is the time, and you're getting these sparks in the practice, and that's really important. Like a little spark, we can grow into a fire, right? But we have to be patient, because we're reversing some really intense habitual patterns around our relationship to love, right?
Thank you. Can I just ask a follow-up? Like, yeah, I have felt when I've, sometimes doing somatic awareness kind of practices, a stuckness, like a knot in my heart, in parts of my chakras or something. So I'm wondering if these practices, just holding the breath and moving the energy with the breath are a way of unblocking some of those knots, and just having faith and trust that I'm sending my own loving goodness to myself, and I don't know, calling in whatever energies want to be here and love me,
Yep.
trust me there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. That's exactly it, right? Calling in the energies, that are here to help you, and being patient with the knots and the blocks, and just imagining, again, like my foundational practice is just offering everything that I struggle with to the deity, right? Because the nature of what I struggle with is the same nature as the deity. It's all emptiness. Everything is emptiness. Everything is expression of emptiness, right? And so when I get into the habit of offering my struggle to the deity, I'm also training myself to learn how to understand that the struggle itself is also an expression of the deity, right? And there's a lot of release that can start to happen over time once we really situate ourselves in that kind of embodiment and view.
Yeah, I guess that's what's hard for me, is like trust, like that there's anybody else out there. The skeptical mind of like, I don't know who Chenrezig is. That's not my tradition. But I wish it to be, and it's an expression of love that's present for all of us, not just Tibetans. So
well, also Chenrezig has already been with you, is always with you. We just don't call them Chenrezig, But these deities, as over time, as you begin to understand, these deities are emanating all over the place. So here we call Chenrezig, but in another tradition, you call Chenrezig something else. So this is just another form that an awakened being is taking to get us free. But the foundation of the basic work is always the same. It's the trust and the faith. And that takes time.
Yeah.
And I am naturally someone who doesn't trust others. Like I distrust, right? And so this was very difficult for me initially. to get into. Trusting the deity, trusting the teacher, all of that. Like, this was very good. I had a lot of like hard things to work through.
So thank you. That's really generous of you to say. That helps me more about how you broke through.
Well,
Yeah.
I didn't wake up like this, like it's
Yeah.
taking labor. But that's what I commit to. I commit to the work. And I don't care about getting anywhere.
Mm. Yeah.
Just let go of that and just do it. And forget that you're trying to get anywhere, and just do it. Just like submit, surrender, all of it over and over and over again.
That's what I did. Yeah. So I felt the flame, and then I felt like it kind of extinguished over time. It became like, okay, it's blue. Maybe enough energy went in. I don't know. Thank you, Lama Rod. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, for me, the huge transition for me that I experience is like getting to this place where I can just feel the phenomenal world loving me. That like the phenomenal world isn't like this huge antagonistic thing that's trying to eradicate me, which is how I, of course, grew up thinking that the world was like trying to get rid of me. I mean, in a way, the world maybe is, right? But when I say the world, I'm talking about people and institutions and systems, right? But the world, when I say the world, I actually mean phenomenal reality. Phenomenal reality is just an expression of liberation. Like, everything's already free, but we have to do the work to connect to that fundamental freedom.
Yeah.
Right. And unless we start connecting to it, then the space happens like, oh, I can be in the world, right? I can be in institutions and in relationships, but I don't actually have to get swallowed and consumed.
Yeah.
Phenomena, right? Like, I don't have to be overwhelmed by it anymore. I still have to deal with it.
Yeah, but more from the witnesser playing a role kind of thing, but we're connected to something much larger. We know who we are. Yeah. I have moments of that, and then I get
Yeah. And that's wonderful to get moments.
yeah.
Yeah. And celebrate that. That's really great.
I think I need to go frolic in the forest to reconnect more. Real reality. Yeah. Phenomenal world. Thank you, love. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Yeah. I know we're a little past time, but anyone else have a question that they really needed to offer to ask? Well, if there aren't any more questions, I'll give you another practice assignment this week. But I want you just to experiment. Like, as you're just in the world doing your thing, can you take moments throughout the day to try to connect to this inherent care from the phenomenal world? Like, can you say, how is the world phenomenal? How is phenomena taking care of me? And I gave you some examples in the practice. The seat is taking care of me. Oxygen is taking care of me. The sun is taking care of me. Like, get really basic and fundamental like that. Like, these really small things are, again, the expression of emptiness, trying to remind us, right, that we have what we need to get free, if we can just pay attention to what's being offered. And maybe down the road, you don't have to start with this, but maybe down the road, you're getting to this place where you're like, and all the care that I'm receiving is the expression of the deity, right? Is the expression of the mother, is the expression, whomever, of God. And see what happens with that. Again, you can move through the world, developing this love for the world, connecting to the way the world is trying to love you, and you can still set your boundaries, and you can still dislike things and all of that. Like, that doesn't change, right? You can still have the fluidity and the movement and the openness and still practice being safe and still practicing what we were just talking about in terms of tough love, setting boundaries, you know. And you, of course, this is a whole nother assignment, but if like, pay attention to people maybe that who you think are doing this. Like, I know people who move through the world, you know, they're, you know, really advanced practitioners, but people who are just moving through the world and they have this balance where they love people, like they're engaging, you know, but they're also boundaries at the same time, you know. So anyway, just things to pay attention to and to practice with. Until next time.
Hey, Rod.
Yes. Hey.
Hey, long time.
Yeah, no.
So what we call those moments that you're looking for
Yeah.
is really, really looking for moments of care,
Yeah.
because that L word is so loaded.
I know. Mm-hmm.
And yes, I remember your beginnings of struggling. Right, I was right there with you. But looking at those little moments of care that the universe is and our environments are giving us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we'll realize that those moments of care are expression of love.
Yeah. 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 Care is such an easier way to get into this. And this is why in my new book, I'm using care instead of love and compassion. So I just want to like kind of bypass all the baggage and get something else for people. Yeah.
I mean, leading this practice for the last 20 years, that L word is really tough. And I think that's what both you and I struggled at the beginning, was that L word.
Yeah.
And I think, and what I heard a lot of the members here talking about is, I don't know how that word relates to me.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I was happy that because I hadn't heard it yet. In this practice takes a lot of trust and faith.
Yeah.
And just allow.
Yeah.
And allow that. It's like the flowing, allow the flow to come in our bodies, and just really resonate with that. So
that's I mean, that's this whole new practice structure that I'm introducing.
Yeah.
The flow, I call it streams.
Yeah.
You know, that just allowing, flowing, moving, fluidity, care, like just different language for us, you know.
Yeah.
Because,
and I think the way I lead it now is more of a somatic way, and looking at the body as an expression of love, not to us,
right.
Not from us, but looking at, you know, like you said, breathing is an expression of love that the body gives us. And digestion and excretion and all that stuff that we do. And just noticing how our body takes care of us. If we can notice the body taking care of us, that's our self-expression of love. We ignore it. Yeah. We totally ignore it because we think our sensations are second rate. We think our thoughts and emotions are first. But listening and realizing that these 37 trillion cells in our body are each expressing love to us. So you have 37,000 entities, sentient beings, loving you every moment. So I'm happy you're doing this, and I love to come back.
Yeah, absolutely. You're always welcome back. Yeah. Yeah, so much there, absolutely. You know, and to emphasize too that for those of us who are new to this, you will confront a lot of grief, and the grief is healing. Like we're touching into the grief and tending to the grief, you know, to mourn like the ways in which like we haven't gotten the love that maybe we've needed, you know, and to let that go and to actually start moving in a different direction and holding space in a very different way, you know, to let that go and say, you know what, moving forward now, I am tuning in to what a liberatory kind of care and love actually feels like, you know. Yeah. And then this is the gift, of course, the work that we do. I always say this, the work that we do is the work that we offer our descendants, you know. So whoever those descendants are, it may be your kids, it may be young people, you know, you may teach school, like the, you know, whatever, like we are offering the fruits of our practice to people who, and in doing so, maybe they won't have to struggle as much as we did, you know. So having said that, I know that we're almost 15 minutes past time, but like I'll go ahead and just kind of let us go for today. So thank you all so much for your practice. It was so good to see so many of you, all the you know, people from, you know, from Bodhisattva and from Natural Dharma. Thank you so much for your practice. And just, yeah, and please join us again for our next practice. I also dedicate the merit of our time together to the liberation of all beings, right? That all beings may know the experience and embody the experience of liberatory care and love, right? Which we need more and more of these days, right? So thank you all so much. And I won't be in Medicine Buddha tomorrow, but I'll see you all the week after for Medicine Buddha on Monday. Okay. All right. Thank you all so much. And definitely hope to see you at some venue again, be it online or in person.